As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. It is an honor to rise once again in this place and to say how grateful I am to Almighty God and to the people of Marco City for giving me this opportunity to once again speak in the Parliament. It's not a responsibility that I take lightly. Mr. Deputy, the points raised by the member for Fox Hill are very serious matters, and I certainly did not want. I had expected that, as we had discussed earlier, that Central would have spoken to some of the things that you would have raised. But since he is not speaking next, I really wanted to take this opportunity to address this issue. Again, members of the Free National Movement have friends, relatives who are part of all of the uniform branches. And we value the service that they provide. We know that many public servants, educators in particular, police officers, defense force officers who go away for long periods of time, they sacrifice their family time in order to do the job that they do. And so that's not lost on us. And so we would not inadvertently, certainly or intentionally in any way, seek to diminish that level of sacrifice. And in no way did we see the comments made by the chairman of the Free National Movement seeking to do that or unintentionally communicating that message. The message essentially was that we have a grave matter that can add to eroding the credibility of the administration of law and order, which is not exclusively the responsibility of the police. That's, again, the broader government system in general, but certainly uniform branches of government in particular, including the police force. And the goal is to make sure that the manner in which matters are investigated, we leave it absolutely clear that the government of the Bahamas, its uniform branches, and in this particular case, the police force, is doing everything possible to make sure that no member of the public is left with a view that the police is entirely investigating itself or any other branch of government is investigating itself. And to the extent that we can use assistance from anywhere else that is credible, that we use it. So again, the Prime Minister said nothing differently in that regard in terms of the importance of having assistance in investigating matters. What we want to make sure of, however, is that we do not confine any investigation to an individual, as if this is an individual problem, that somebody becomes a sacrificial lamb to make a point. We should look systemically at the system and figure out, for all gatekeepers, policymakers whose names have been called on recordings, law enforcement agents whose name have been called on recordings, that all and sundry, all ought to be examined carefully. That's the reality. So if it isn't stated, if it hasn't been stated clearly, if something was lost in translation, the point is we have to ensure that investigations occur where, to the general public, that they understand that there is no room for anyone protecting members of their same fraternity, that all policymakers, whose names are called, law enforcement whose names are called, private citizens whose names are called, that all of it is examined in totality. And so that's essentially what I've heard from the government side, what I've heard from the opposition, what we are all reading from the general public. And I hope that in a broad sense that makes it even clearer. Just to put a finer point on it, you made mention, the member for Fox Hill made mention that there's generally no daylight between him and the Prime Minister or any of the Prime Ministers with whom he has worked. I won't litigate that issue except to say that so important was it to this sitting Prime Minister and his colleagues to clarify a point that you made, that they spoke on the record. So as it relates to let me finish the point. So with respect to the Freedom of Information Act and where this administration stands on it, with respect to the Procurement Act and where this administration stands on it, this administration spoke clearly, and they again dismissed or distanced themselves from the comments you may have made. It could have been offhand.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
You're going in another direction now, right? The press, you talking about freedom of information, the press made an error, which they continue to repeat.
Okay.
The press made an error. You know, that got nothing to do with me, what they say. I'm sick and tired of them and the errors that they make, okay? So, you know, I don't know how you fool with that, you know? I mean, okay, so that's the first point. Say? Say? Yeah, you know, I just understand this, right? So my point is, the Prime Minister's statements came because the press asked him a question, but not to clarify anything. That's the point I'm making. It's in your interest as an opposition party to keep thinking and selling this idea that there's somehow some friction or difference of opinion between those of us who sit on this bench. There is none. That's a figment of your imagination. And it's up to you to rattle our cages. I guess that's your role as leader of the opposition, but I'm telling the public that it is false, false, false. Doesn't exist.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Again, with respect to the freedom of information, I accept what you say now. You said the press has misled the public with respect to that issue. On the issue of procurement and the freedom of information, you are now saying that you support that this administration in this term will enact all elements of the freedom of information and procurement? Okay, so. Yeah.
I only
Sorry.
answer one point.
Yeah.
You folk, the Free National Movement, issued a statement this morning which was mischievous, designed to cause mischief. And all I'm saying is, in pursuance of your mischief, leave me out of it. I got nothing to do with it. All I'm saying is that the public should know that the Progressive Liberal Party and its government supports the integrity of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, that an investigation will be carried out. Unlike the leader of the opposition just said, I'm not seeking to tell the investigators what to do. It's their job to do the investigation. If they need assistance, they will ask the government for the assistance, and the resources will be provided. But you now saying, oh, they must do this and this. The Bahamas can investigate itself. Of course it can. What's the issue with that? They investigate crimes every day. What does reading the Riot Act? Reading the Riot Act is a figurative expression, which means that the government indicated that this is a serious matter, which the public is looking at, which requires the confidence of the public to be reinforced by a thorough investigation. That's all. That's all. You're seeking to make mischief again. It's such a literal generation. Good Lord. You know?
Honestly, I'm flabbergasted at the amount of emotions being expressed by the member for Fox Hill. I mean, given the fact that in your daily voice notes, you thrive on pointing out, or some would argue, fabricating dissensions that may exist, for example, in the Free National Movement. And I just don't recall a reaction in the Parliament to what you do on a daily basis, as opposed to a one voice note, one time, one time during the week. So I'm saying I'm just at a loss as to why you are so moved. Sorry.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
We ain't talking about voice notes, man. There are two official statements made by the Free National Movement.
No.
Two official statements made by the Free National Movement in which they made various allegations. I am simply saying that they are mischievous and misdirected, and I'm seeking to set the record straight. And please, don't prescribe for me how I can respond to something. I respond however I want to respond. You know?
So again, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. I would only say that again, we have had very serious concerns about this administration's position on the Freedom of Information Act, and again, we got the distinct impression that again that this government is not committed to bringing in the remaining elements of it. We've heard various statements that suggest. But again, we heard it was important enough for the Prime Minister and team to go on the record by saying that they are committed to the Procurement Act, they are committed to the Freedom of Information Act. We say the proof is in the pudding. And there's a comment I'm going to make in this statement, Prime Minister, that really points to this issue, that we are concerned about an unwillingness to follow the Procurement Act, and we think that BPL is a perfect example in that regard. But I'll come to that in a moment. But first, the bill at hand. Again, as was indicated by Deputy Leader who spoke earlier, we believe that several elements of the compendium of legislation is really an important step forward. And while it is the case that we did, in fact, we did write the restorative justice piece, we did, in fact, let me, oh, yeah, sure.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
Your chairman, right, was judicially condemned, was he not? Condemned judicially. He says he was not aware that his chairman was conditionally condemned. No, I mean, it's clear. It's right there in the judgment. Yeah, okay. So I'm saying, so that again adds to this. I just found it flabbergasted this fellow can actually make a statement against that background about investigations and independence and all the rest of it. That's the issue.
I will not seek to enumerate the statements that were misleading that has been said by members on that side in this House, again, which they recanted, etc. So I wouldn't do that in response to the point you made. I'd only continue by saying, as indicated by our Deputy Leader and all of our speakers who will speak today, we support the restorative justice element of this compendium of bill. We believe that the time has long passed for young men and women in this country who have been convicted for possession of small quantities of marijuana, that they ought to be given a second chance. And while we crafted such a bill, we did not regrettably pass that bill before demitting office. And so we support the government's effort in this regard to finally bring that bill to the Parliament. Secondly, we do support the amendment to the Dangerous Drug Act to add cannabis as a controlled substance in order for us to, again, give many families who are facing a variety of ailments an opportunity to get the treatment required in order to address the various illnesses that have been identified by various members of I'm always relaxed, my brother, until I'm not. And so we support, Mr. Deputy, the element of the bill that amends the Dangerous Drug Act in order to place cannabis as a controlled substance. Thirdly, Mr. Deputy, you would hear during the course of this debate that while we support the compendium of legislation, there are several critical areas that we believe the government is missing an opportunity. So let me first identify one of them. On this issue of ownership, I believe that there are a number of members of this administration who clearly do not support the element of this bill that permits foreign companies from being able, even though it's open to Bahamian companies, but for foreign companies to be able to be a 100% shareholder or 75% or 50% shareholder in a manufacturing company that can produce a wide range of the products or implements used in the administering of medicinal marijuana or medicinal cannabis. And so, again, this government that talks a great deal about ownership should go out of its way, as we had intended to make sure that you do not have majority ownership of any element of this particular industry by foreign practitioners and operators. And so I would recommend to the Minister of Health and to the Minister with responsibility for agriculture and cabinet colleagues that we seek to amend before the closure of this debate, amend the component of this legislation that allows those persons in the manufacturing, in the innovation space, et cetera, that permits them to become majority shareholders in this particular industry. It can't be right for thousands of young Bahamians to have been criminalized for small quantities of marijuana for personal use, to now have their records expunged, but to be placed at a disadvantage in being owners in a substantial way of the very industry before we liberalize it. They will now be at a decided disadvantage given the approach that the government is presently taking in terms of ownership. And it is surprising that this administration is doing that, given what we know about several members of this organization who fight continually and legitimately for decades fighting for the patrimony of Bahamians. It cannot be right what is in fact being done. So on one hand, we then seek to protect their second chance opportunity to be fully integrated into this society. And then on the other hand, we then limit their capacity to become owners of this economy. The second thing is we believe that the government should have conversations with its partners locally, certainly internationally, with respect to the risk we run in terms of reputational damage, because persons can come off a cruise ship or a plane, fulfill their prescription or get a prescription locally, submit it to a dispenser, get products which it's unlikely. This industry, certainly industry experts who advise the government could not contemplate that every medication they get when they land in the Bahamas, they would consume it all prior to leaving. The likelihood is slim to none. The likelihood is that they're going to use a portion to treat the ailment that they face, and the rest is going to go in a bag as they go on to another destination or back to the U.S. And so the government ought to take that into consideration, and if only engage in the discussion. Sorry, if you wish to comment, could you pause the clock, please?
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Tall Pines.
City and myself had a similar discussion concerning this with cruise ship passengers. We're not reinventing the wheel. This is happening throughout the Caribbean, and cruise ship passengers and cruise ships know that by law, you don't have the ability to move medical marijuana from one jurisdiction to the other. We, in our educational policy, will reiterate what is already known in the cruise industry, that if you purchase medical cannabis in the country, you consume it here, what you haven't consumed, you need to dispose of, because you will be breaking laws as transshipment through borders. This is We one of the last in the game. This is happening now as we speak, and we are fully aware of the statements that you make. And you could rest assured that our public education will ensure that the cruise ships and the cruise ship passengers are fully informed, even at the dispensary, the pharmacy, or therapeutic facility.
Thank you very much. Again, one of the additional concerns raised by some of our stakeholders relate again to the zoning requirements. When we were in the chair, one of the things that we sought to do was to look at the issue of zoning in terms of making sure that the cultivation sites or the sites where there will be dispensing, that those sites were not in close proximity to schools. And we had an opportunity to meet with the president of the Christian Council, who reiterated should not also be in close proximity to churches. That was again a view expressed. And so we are echoing some of the concerns that they raised, but particularly in terms of schools. Obviously, the Prime Minister, the member for Kent Islands, indicated that he was concerned about the advertisement, to ensure that advertisement is not done in a way that it sought to attract or entice particularly minors. And so, of course, zoning is one of the greatest banner or advertisement for a thing is the location of where it will be placed. And so we ought to then be mindful of where we permit such facilities to be placed and what unintended consequences that might have. The other point that was not clarified that would be very useful is in the case of the sacrament made available to our brothers and sisters from the Rastafarian culture, one of the things that we did not see, or certainly if I missed it, please forgive me, and member for Tall Pines, I would gladly yield for you to clarify, is that if the Rastafarian movement is, for example, permitted to have its sacrament, the question is from where? They may not, for example, as was said earlier by the mover and the seconder, be interested in purchasing cannabis from those approved dispensaries, given the configuration of what is being made available. So the question is there a provision being carved out for them to then, in a controlled way, grow their own supply? That issue was not clarified, but if the minister would, okay.
Thank you so much for yielding, Martin City. You can rest assured that the Rastafarian groups are fully aware of what we're doing. They have the ability to administer the sacrament in their sanctuary, or they have the ability to receive sacrament in the privacy of their own homes. If they're interested in the whole process of micro-cultivation, standard cultivation, they have to go ahead and get the licenses like everyone else.
That's the point.
It's embedded in the legislation.
Okay, but nobody spoke to it. Okay.
It is.
Okay.
It's there.
Okay. So in other words, they have the capacity to be involved in cultivation. Okay. That's a clarification. And then finally, with respect to ownership, our concern is that your legislation and regulations permit persons to have all of the licenses. One person or one group has the ability to own all of the licenses. When we were in the chair, we contemplated combinations of licenses, but not one group or one person owning all of the licenses. And in refreshing my memory, speaking.
Let me clarify that point.
Yeah.
You said all the licenses.
Yes.
No.
Transportation.
No. Yeah, okay. Let's
cultivation.
clarify that. But when you say all the licenses, you send a message out in the public domain. All the licenses.
Sorry. Let me just say specifically.
Please clarify that.
When we were in the chair.
Yes.
It was not contemplated or was not accepted that one person or group should own the cultivation, the transportation, the security, the manufacturing, the dispensing, and et cetera. Correct, under therapeutic facility. Under your legislation, under your legislation, you have agreed that one person or group, a consortium, can have all of those licenses at the same time.
Yes. We didn't come up with this out of the wind. We benchmarked the jurisdiction, and in the jurisdiction, you have groups who have the capability, the expertise to handle all licenses. I don't see why if a Bahamian have the expertise, he can't have all the licenses. There's some groups who just want one or two, and it is the choice. We didn't think coming out of the box that we should limit. We believe by establishing the authority, and I made it very clear, that once the authority is established, there will be opportunities to review the evidence-based information associated with all the various licenses, and we can always tighten up and we can always do, but after benchmarking jurisdictions, we felt in order for the industry to get an opportunity to move quickly, we needed to find out ways how Bahamians could partner with direct foreign investors who may have the expertise and don't have the capital. If they have all of the capital and expertise, then if they want 100% of the licenses, God be with them. But there is some Bahamians who have expertise and do not have the capital, and we felt we should not eliminate them from the start. We felt it would be appropriate for them to joint venture, but Bahamians in the three licenses, which is analytics, research, and manufacturing, Bahamians should have a minimum. I didn't say Bahamians can have 100% if they want. But we allow direct foreign investors, reputable direct foreign investors, and this is clearly articulated in our blueprint for change, what we say we would do. So we didn't make this up. We said this to the Bahamian people. If we elected, this is how we would approach it, and we are actually following our blueprint.
Thank you very much, Member. Fines. Again, on my final point on the issue of ownership, I noticed that there was no reference made to what the fee structure would be. I believe I heard a report that the minister says that they are still working out what the fee schedule is going to be. Once again, I believe that it is a mistake to, again, have all of the licenses in the hand of one consortium or one individual. I think you will have more of the same usual group that dominates the economy in different sectors. We are now opening up the door in an area where there's only a particular group of Bahamians who were disproportionately negatively affected by them being criminalized, that those persons may never see the light of day in terms of ownership and us creating a shareholder society with a broad base of persons. And yes.
Yes. Member from Marco City, it's okay to agree to disagree. I disagree with you. I believe there are reputable Bahamians who have expertise and talents, who lack direct foreign investment, and they also need to have an opportunity. This is to ensure that they have an opportunity. For those who have it all together, then they can go ahead and get 100% owner. But we felt that there are some Bahamians, and they came to us to say, listen here, we have the expertise. I don't have the capital. Please do not disenfranchise us who are prepared to bring financing to the table, even though it may not be Bahamians. But for those who have 100% or have the resources, so I beg to disagree.
But a portion of what you said, we are, thank you, Mr. Deputy, on the same page. Bahamians should have the right to invite foreigners in as strategic partners, but in no case should foreign investors, direct investors, be able to have the majority shareholder in any dimension of the business. That would be the position we take. And the more you prevent one particular group or individual from holding all the licenses, you create opportunities for multiple Bahamians, to borrow the words from Get Island, for thousands of Bahamians to find a way into the industry by holding, if only one or two of the licenses. So, Mr. Deputy, on this issue of ownership, if you would permit me, Mr. Deputy, just to pivot for a few minutes. On this issue of ownership, our concern is that it cannot be a select group of Bahamians who are empowered and facilitated to create generational wealth when there are thousands and hundreds of other Bahamians who are blocked out of the ability to do the same. BPL is but one example of that, Mr. Deputy. We saw just recently.
Chief.
The
of
chair
Stockholm
recognizes
City. You
Tall
made a
Pines.
statement. I was having a...
Feel free to share what the Deputy Prime Minister...
No. You made a statement. I was preoccupied, and that one slipped by me. There is no limitations on licenses at this point, sir. So you made a statement that is a bit incorrect. You made it seem as if there's limitation on licenses. This...
Let him make the point because he's misleading you.
No. You said select few. And I find that to be incorrect. And I think you need to be fair because don't let's contaminate it with things that are not in the bill. If that's your opinion, sir, you could say, I believe that's my opinion. But don't say select few.
He misled you. No. So I want to say, the point I made is that there is only a select group of Bahamians that have the ability to own and hold and operate all of those licenses. And what we do not want is a select group of powerful, wealthy folks to dominate a sector where they were never disadvantaged in. Some other folks were. So all we were saying is by having more licenses available to a wide range of Bahamians, you allow a whole host of people to enter the market. That's the only point I'm making. Everybody on this road got to eat. That's the point I'm making, right? So again, this vertical integration, which was suggested to you by a very successful business person who knows about vertical integration, was saying from cultivation all the way to sale, they will control the entire value chain. And I'd be happy for them, but we are not here to facilitate the further creation of 10-generation wealth. It's about bringing new actors into the market to make sure the medicinal marijuana or medicinal cannabis work. So let me just close. I only have 20 more minutes. So let me just close, please. Let me close by saying, on this issue of ownership, once again we are faced with a similar kind of situation, where the Davis administration is facilitating, again, circumventing the Procurement Act, single sourcing to particular business interests who might very well, we don't doubt, knowing several of them, we don't doubt their capacity. What we are concerned about is the government, this administration, the Davis administration, refusing to engage in competitive bidding in so many different areas. And one example is in the case of BPL.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
The leader of the opposition might pose a question as to the process, but he ought not put allegations against anyone on this side as to the lack of process. So if he has questions, he can raise those questions, but he cannot speak as if he sat in the room, as if he was engaged in the process, and therefore he's misleading, Mr. Deputy. He ought to question as to what the process is or was, rather than pretending that he knows whilst he misleads.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. I'm referring, Mr. Deputy, to comments made by no less than the Minister for Energy, who talked about single sourcing and why it was justified under those circumstances to single source. And for members of the public, that only means that they ignored all other options and made available contracts and agreement to a particular group. That's all it means. And no less than the minister admitted that, but I understand what the deputy was doing. I see you, Blair. I'm sorry, I see you, Mr. Deputy, in terms of what you were seeking to do. No. But I need to pose a question since the member already said what they were doing. And so again, a lot of denials have been issued by this administration on this question of ownership. We said, the opposition said, there should be broad competition for who will control the generation assets at BPL. One, there should be broad competition for who will be responsible for transmission and distribution upgrades. Three, there should be broad competition for who builds the line between Clifton and Blue Hills to transfer the gas. Four, that there should be competition for the regasification plant, which has been wholesalely given to Shell North America. And all we are saying is that the government has failed to promote promotion.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
The member referenced Shell North America. Shell North America is not new.
Correct. You're correct.
He would be well aware.
You're correct.
So when he's talking about process, when he's talking about single source, he ought to trace a line back to his cabinet, and he would recognize that Shell North America came as a result of the process run by the Minister administration,
Yeah.
of which he was a part of. So again, I ask him not to be mischievous, but simply, if he has questions as it relates to the process,
question.
then he should pose them.
No question.
But if he is accusing this administration of single sourcing to Shell North America, he is woefully wrong, Mr. Deputy, and I ask him to desist.
Mr. Deputy, because I only have about 15 more minutes, Mr. Deputy, I would not litigate the issue raised by the member for Exuma who is seeking to distract me. I would only say, Mr. Deputy, I would only say for members of the public who may not know, the configuration of the arrangement between the Davis administration and Shell North America is fundamentally different than the configuration of the arrangement under Dr. Hubert Alexander Minnis when he was in the chair. Those are two very different arrangements. So we will have an opportunity to litigate that issue. But let me go on to say that there was a lack of competitive bidding. So just recently, despite all the government's denial, we recently saw the release of the Bahamas Grid Company private placement memorandum. And again, let me just go through just a little bit of this, Mr. Deputy, and I pray time permits me to get to the end of it. What we now see with this release is that a private placement for $30 million has now successfully been completed. Several things, that is the Bahamas Grid Company, it's a private placement again. So Mr. Deputy, please protect me from the member who continues to make unnecessary noise, right? And he's probably, that person who I will not identify is probably an investor, right? So again, sorry.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Exuma and Ragged
Member
Island.
for Marco City has crossed the line. He's crossed the line. The only member who has interrupted him was the member for Exuma. That's me. And I am. Let me finish. I'm not an investor in anything related to BPL or any new entity associated with BPL. So let's be very clear. I was the only member interrupting him, and I asked him not to go there, not sully the environment with nonsense, Mr. Deputy. He ought to speak to the facts. If he doesn't have the facts, he ought to make inquiries. Instead of saying that a process wasn't followed, he would be better off asking about the process. That's the simple point I'm making. So I'm not going to sit here and allow him to go all around the mulberry bush, misleading the public. But he has to be honorable in his approach to what he's doing here today.
Thank you, honorable member.
Again, Mr. Deputy, in the case of the provision or ceding of Bahamian asset on the generation side, to the best of our knowledge, the upgrade, a contract has been issued to enhance and upgrade the electricity generation network to Bahamas Utility Company. Again, we wish to reiterate, we are not aware of any competitive process used to award this contract to Bahamas Utility Company. In addition, in addition, we want to know what was the competitive process to provide the transmission and distribution arrangement to that particular company that was responsible, that is the Bahamas Grid Company. Mr. Deputy, so we have two cases where we know of no competitive bidding. We suspect that this administration is about to once again make available the construction of the gas line from Clifton to Blue Hills, again to a private company, which means the Bahamian people will have to pay a toll for the rest of our natural lives unless somebody changes it to a private company. The government alone should bill, should raise the capital in order to build this particular line so that we are not paying a tax on this particular line. Mr. Deputy, with regard to the Bahamas Grid Company, the offering memorandum that was released states that the company sold all of its common shares to private investors for $30 million. There's no offering, Mr. Deputy, to the public. One of the things that was typical under the Minister administration was to make sure that we sought to give Bahamians an opportunity to buy shares in companies, particularly a company that would have carriage of any Bahamian asset. The question is, why wasn't upfront the ordinary Bahamian given an opportunity to buy shares into any of these companies that will control a significant portion of our patrimony, of Bahamian assets? Again, the second thing that is of concern to us, Mr. Deputy, is that the Bahamas Grid Company, which again is a company that's made up of what? BPL and investors. That particular company, we are very much concerned, Mr. Deputy, how they were able to single source a particular company in order to carry out the necessary works. We are once again concerned, Mr. Deputy, about Bahamians not being given a chance, other than if you could come in at a $50,000 minimum. Why other Bahamians have not been given an opportunity to invest in either of these companies. The parent company with BPL and in private investors, or the company that they single source to. Again, we are very concerned that Bahamians have not been given an opportunity to buy in, especially after there was no competitive bidding process that permitted other Bahamians to have a chance to enter into this arrangement. And so again, Mr. Deputy, as I wrap up, this administration is not committed to competitive bidding in a space like the energy space as it relates to BPL. What they are doing is taking the assets of the Bahamian people and making it available that other companies are putting it on their books. So much so that this morning, one of the things that was indicated, that the book value of the transmission and distribution assets, which we believe is north of $500 million, the book value of this administration, as they said here during the budget debate, was listed at a little over $100 million. All of a sudden, 1 year later, that very company is able to list a value of more than $200 million. The question is, what accounts for that dramatic meteoric rise in terms of valuation? Well, we're not surprised, because we believe if you look at the replacement value for the transmission and distribution infrastructure in New Providence, there is no way that's going to come in less than $300 million. Persons we have spoken to clearly indicate they believe it's $500 to $800 million that is going to come in at. So we want the government to, in the wrap-up, to speak to whether or not they intentionally devalued the asset in order to get rid of it to some private group.
Yeah, the chair recognizes the honourable member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
The leader of the opposition knows no bounds in where the line of decency is drawn. He just, the member for Marco City just accused someone, if not the government.
When I said the government, let's be clear. I'm speaking directly about the government.
Let me finish.
All
right.
The transmission and
Yeah.
distribution. So when I'm going to say someone, the government of the Bahamas, did you devalue?
Mr. Deputy, the member for Marco City has made a very serious accusation, which the government denies. Unless he has evidence to the contrary, I will invite him to withdraw those scurrilous accusations from the record, Mr. Deputy. Further, the member has consistently made reference to a document that was apparently released today. As this member is unaware of this document that was released today, that he is making reference from consistently, I've asked him to table this document if he stands by this document, Mr. Deputy. But I fully expect, Mr. Deputy, that he will do the honorable thing and he will withdraw the scurrilous accusations made against the government of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member, are you going to withdraw?
Again, I raise the question, did the government devalue the transmission and distribution assets of New Providence to fit $100 million, which we now understand is already being valued 1 year later, $200 million. And what we are hearing is that the district to replace. Just a minute. I'll yield to you. Just let me just finish the statement, please.
Yeah, the chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
The member for Marco City tries to dress up a scurrilous accusation as a question. The rules with regard questions require them not to be formatted assuming facts. And so if you assume the facts of a correct valuation, if you assume the facts as to putting of questions, and so if he now on his feet proposes to do something which is questioned, the overriding rule of this House is to be honorable. That's the bottom line. And Exuma was trying to say it in a nice way. If you break the rules of being honorable, you learn that at the feet of your parents. You don't have to have anyone write it in a book. And the first rule of being honorable is if you are asking me to answer a question, you don't assume facts. And it is very simple. It's dishonorable behavior, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if he, yes, to be honorable. That's what you call to be honorable. That's the overriding rule. Plain and simple. You need a rule to be honorable, East Grand Bahama?
Mr. Deputy, let me as I wrap up. Let me make this point.
The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
The member for Marco City, no matter how he phrases it, has made a very serious allegation. I ask that he withdraw it. If he refuses to withdraw it, Mr. Deputy, I ask that you have all references to the government undervaluing assets and passing it on to someone else, etc., as he suggests, that it be expunged from the record. We've denied the allegations. If he wishes to come back later with his evidence, he might do so. But today, Mr. Deputy, we ask that these references be expunged if he fails to do the honorable thing.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Noted. I would take down. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for.
Which is very self-evident. It's Rule 33, Sub-Rule 17. Imputation of improper motives and personal reflection shall be dealt with, and that comes after the rule of not using offensive, abusive, and insulting words.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for Marco City, are you going to withdraw?
What is happening now, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Trying to dress it up as a question won't save it, because in question time, the rules are the same.
Honourable Member, are you going to withdraw?
So, Mr. Deputy, let me take the same statement I made, Mr. Deputy, and let me rephrase the very same question. 1 year, this government in the budget communication represented that the book value for the transmission and distribution assets in New Providence was roughly $100 million. 1 year, I'm sorry, no, don't interrupt me while I answer your question.
The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
No matter what continuation of this diatribe the member continues, my request is the same. He's made serious allegations. I ask that he withdraw them. And if he fails to withdraw them, I ask that they be expunged. I don't need any response. I don't need any further explanations unless he's prepared to demonstrate and justify what he said. he must withdraw. If he fails to withdraw, Mr. Deputy, you must expunge.
Thank you, honorable member.
If I was not clear to the member for Exuma. So we will withdraw that statement since he believes, and first of all, it is a question that I raised, but we can withdraw that. I now wish to rephrase the very same question. 1 year, the transmission and distribution assets in New Providence, from what we heard, I'm not the expert, was $100 million. Now we are hearing that on the books of a company that it's likely to be 200. In fact, it's carried in today's daily. It's carried. Well, Mr. Depp, this is an abuse of the system. I'm just trying to answer. I've done that. Now I'm trying to answer. And again, the member for Exuma and the member for Freetown is not permitting me to complete the statement. So 1 year later, Mr. Deputy, 1 year later, Mr. Deputy, the assets are being, the assets.
I'll let you finish, Honorable City for Marco City, but the chair recognizes Honorable Member for Freetown.
We've asked for it to be tabled for a very simple reason. This $220 million value is the $100 million book value. Added to it is the $130 million to be spent, and that forms a part of a projected balance sheet. So if he would table this document from which he is getting these facts, it would be clear. Now table the document.
Mr. Deputy. Again, 1 year later, as reported in today's daily, 1 year later, it is more than double. But that's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is the most conservative estimates of experts in the energy space pegs the value, the replacement value of transmission and distribution assets across New Providence as naught of $300 million. Some of them say 500 to 800 million. And so it begs the question,
Honorable Member, are you asking for more time?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Deputy, I'm wrapping up now.
Yes, sir.
I'm begging, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. So it begs the question, did the government of the Bahamas get the evaluation of the transmission and distribution assets completely wrong? Are they so off base that 1 year later the value could be double? And could they be even more off base that experts in this sector peg the replacement value anywhere from $300 to $800 million? And again, so it begs the question. And then I close only with this single statement, Mr. Deputy. One of the greatest and most egregious things this administration has done is that it is seeking to create generational wealth among a small group of investors. In fact, the average Bahamian has not been factored into what the Davis administration is doing. It flies in the face of even the values of his own organization. Right? It flies in the face where they are not creating opportunities for ordinary Bahamians. First, ordinary Bahamians and others are locked out of bidding to even get around the table. And having been locked out, the price value for buy-in prevents them from coming into the room. And so what they are doing is absolutely wrong as an administration. We now have clear proof. We haven't heard the government deny that any of this is factual. We have clear proof that they are proceeding along with the privatization of BPL, even though they have said something different during the budget debate. And they still haven't talked to the workers. They still haven't come to the public with a cogent explanation of the process that they have used. So as we talk about ownership, even in the cannabis legislation, they have a chance to further empower
The chair
Bahamians.
recognizes the honourable member for Exum and Ragged Island.
Mr. Deputy, the member for Marco City made reference to a document that he is referring to. His reference to this document, he is tying back to decisions by the government. And I've simply asked that he do the honorable thing and lay the document on the table. If he is making reference to it, lay it on the table. That's the proper, appropriate way to do it. so that at least we will be able to correct him appropriately, because I am satisfied that he, once more, he is misleading.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Central and South Eleuthera.
No, yeah, I can do it for him. I got the document here. So the member for Marco City spoke about this extra 130 million, you said, in evaluation?
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes.
I said the value doubled.
Okay.
Yes.
No. So when you look at the bond offering, right? I'm going to read the full executive summary. No, but you're being mischievous.
That's what
You are. So in the executive summary, from the bond offering, the C-file, it gives it direct on how it is. I'm going to read it. So Obama's Grid Company was formed in 2023 alongside Obama's Power and Light to undertake certain fundamental improvements. The company seeks to carry out initial fundamental improvements to the T&D system in the amount of $130 million. Absolutely. Right? So it goes on further to say that BPL has assigned a value of approximately $100 million with its related facilities, properties, and equipment. So the project will require $130 million in initial financing, which is a bond offering, which will be sourced via debt and equity in tranches. That's right. So you've seen it. So stop being mischievous, man. Unbelievable.
In a bond.
Unbelievable.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Marco City.
No.
I will lay. No, I'm not retracting anything. There are no retractions. I'm going to lay the reference that has been made this morning to it. That's no problem. I'm going to lay the document. Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
So again, Mr. Deputy, I will lay the article that I'm referencing. No, I'm going to lay.
No, I read the article, but the article is different than the bond offering. The bond offering speaks directly to
I'm going to lay. I'm going to lay the.
$30 million bond offering and
I refer what I said. The value, the book value, 1 year later. 1 year later is going to double. The value of the assets 1 year later is going. So, right. So again, the buy-in is $50,000. We are saying more Bahamians should have been given an opportunity to buy into the investment. And Mr. Deputy, I'm going to the reference that I made to the doubling of the value was carried in today's daily on the front page, and I'm going to lay that particular article. And so again, I say the members are opposite. Our goal is to reduce the cost of electricity. Our goal is to provide reliability of electricity. Our goal is to make sure it's cleaner electricity and it's consistent. However, we must give as many companies as possible an opportunity to say who best can provide the lowest price for reliable and consistent power. When we make it available to any single group, there are Bahamians who are bound to say, I've not been given an opportunity to also compete to have control of our own assets. That is the ultimate point that we're making. We are further saying, having done that, the government then presides over a process where the average Bahamian is unable to buy shares given the fact that the buy-in is way beyond their level, 50,000 levels or more. And so it's for that reason we are concerned. And we're concerned about the government because you are the gatekeepers. We don't hold the companies so much responsible. We hold you responsible because you are the gatekeepers.
Order that the documents be brought up.
So, Rashad, can you print it for me, please? Yeah, thank you.